The Ribbon Designer for SharePoint and Office 365 is a new development tool from Add-in Express that simplifies the task of customizing the SharePoint ribbon, whether it's SharePoint 2010 on-premise or SharePoint Online. Using the Ribbon Designer, you can build completely custom SharePoint ribbons, or you can customize built-in SharePoint ribbons. This video will provide you with an end-to-end demo that shows how to create a new Ribbon Designer project, design a custom ribbon for SharePoint, write and attach code to the ribbon and ribbon controls, how to debug the Ribbon Designer project, and how to deploy and activate it within SharePoint. Alright, well there's the introduction. I'm going to fade away, and then when I come back, we'll be in my development environment and we'll tackle this end-to-end demo together. Okay, and as promised, I'm back, and what I want to start with is just a quick review of the system requirements, the things you need in place to use the Ribbon Designer and to develop with it. And first off, you're going to need Visual Studio 2010. That's a requirement for the Ribbon Designer, and also when you use it, you need to be sure and run Visual Studio as the administrator. Second, you're going to need SharePoint 2010 installed locally, and there's a few ways you can do this. You can use either Windows Vista or Windows 7. Either one has to be the 64-bit version of the operating system, or you can run it on Windows Server 2008 R2. And then you just need to install SharePoint. So SharePoint 2010, either the Foundation, Standard, or Enterprise versions. Since I meet all the requirements and I have Visual Studio open as the administrator, let's go ahead and take the Ribbon Designer for a spin. And I'm going to start out by doing File, New Project. And in my installed templates, we see the SharePoint node, and within there I have the ADX SharePoint ribbon, and I have this because I've already installed the Ribbon Designer on my system. And I'll select that project template, and then I will name this just as the Ribbon Designer Demo. And I will leave everything else the same and simply say OK. Now doing that starts the new SharePoint Ribbon Designer Project Wizard, which will walk us through really just one step. And it wants to know what is the location or the URL of my site that I want to use for debugging. And it's already gone out and grabbed. It knows that my site is intranet.contoso.com, which is this site, which also answers to intranet. But that's the site that I want to use. And then the other question is, what is the trust level for this SharePoint solution? I can do a sandbox solution or a farm solution. And for this demo, I'm just going to go ahead and select deploy as a farm solution, and I'll click finish to have the project created inside of Visual Studio. After Visual Studio creates the project, it opens up the Ribbon Designer design surface. And what this has is 4 sections, and I want to go ahead and take this first one, this is the toolbar, and it contains the controls that we can use to design a ribbon. And I'm going to go ahead and just add a tab to our ribbon. So now I have this ADX SP Ribbon Tab 1, and where this control resides is within the Ribbon Design surface, or the Ribbon Designer itself, this being the toolbar right here, and this area being the designer. And then down below, we have what's known as the In-Place Designer, which allows me to select an object in the designer. And then the In-Place Designer will give us a design time preview of what the control will look like during runtime. And within it, we have the hierarchy of the tab that I'm making. So I can click on the Ribbon Tab 1. And none of the controls are really lit up yet because none of them are in context. I need to go ahead and create a group first. So I'll add a group, and I'll select it, and then now all the controls right here in this In-Place Designer are now available, and I can add the various controls that are supported by the ribbon or by the SharePoint ribbon. And for this group, I just want to add the ribbon button, which is an ADX SP ribbon button. And now for this demo now, I've basically created in just really 1 minute, I have a custom ribbon with a tab, a group, and a button. And all I've really done is typical Windows Forms type development. Everything is just WYSIWYG here, or what you see is what you get. Now before I get to configuring or setting properties and adding code, let's move over here to the Solution Explorer. And what I want to point out here is really what we have The Ribbon Designer is a SharePoint feature. It follows the same architecture as SharePoint projects or SharePoint feature projects. So the key things being here, we have the feature file, which takes our spribbon.feature, where we have the SP feature file, which I'll double click and open. And really what this is the package for our customization. It includes the manifest for all the files that would need to be installed when we package and deploy the solution. So I'll close this. Now, when it comes to code, what I need to do, I'm going to go ahead and say show all files, and we have a couple places where we can add code. We have this event receiver.vb, and I'll do view code, and we see here our class. And then also we have a place for adding JavaScript code, which would be this spribbon.js file. So these are the places where we would typically add code. Of course, you could also include your own classes if you so desire. I'll close these now, and I'll save, and let's get back to configuring the button. And this won't take but a second. Let's just take this from the top level, and for the tab, I want to change the tab to say My Custom Ribbon, and then the item type is what gets or sets the identifier of the list or item content type that we'll have our ribbon display for. So I want to select, I'm going to move to the very top, and I want to move down and find task under the list content types node. And I'll leave everything else the same. So in terms of the ribbons, I'm just going to select list views, the only place I want this to display. And the sequence will be 0. Visibility, I want it to be true. I want it to display by default. Then let's move to our group. The only thing I really want to do here is change the group caption to be My Custom Group. And then for the button, I will change it to say Click Me. The display mode, I want to be image 32 and caption. And then that leads me to what we need to do next, which is come back to the designer, and on the toolbox I want to find an image list, and in this image list I'll set its color depth to 32-bit, and the width and height I want to be 32, and for the collection we'll add just a custom icon, or one of the icons available with Visual Studio. And I'm going to my Visual Studio 2010 image library, all the way down to objects, the icon format, WinVista folder, and that is where I found something suitable for what I want to do here in this demo. I think. There it is. I want this little text balloon. We'll select it, say OK, and OK. Now I can go back to my button, and I want to set the image list property to image list 1, and then for the image I want to choose that image and say Click Me. Now let's take a look at the code. I'm going to switch over here in the properties to the events, and we see that we have JavaScript events and server events available for the button. In this demo, I'm going to focus on the server events, the JavaScript being more, it is a client event, and that's definitely a scenario that we support. But for now, for this demo, I'm going with the server events, and I'll just double click right here in this on action event to stub out the method. And the first thing you notice is that this event is not supported in Sandbox Solutions, which means you would be restricted to using the JavaScript methods. But in this case, I'm going farm solution, so I'm okay. All I want to do right here is I'm going to do one line of code that will be basically a hello world, and then next we're going to do another event that will cause it to display. And what we'll do is take advantage of this EParameter that is passed as part of the on-action event. And this EParameter is the addedexpress.sharepoint.adxSP action event arguments, or args. And we can use a property that's available with this E object, and what the result property is it gets or sets a string passed in response to the postback. So in response to the on action, I can use the very well known hello world and pass that back. So So I'll go ahead and save everything, and we'll move back to the Ribbon Designer design surface, and I'm going to expand my windows. And now what I want to do is get the events for the actual ribbon. So I'll click on the ADX Ribbon tab 1, which shows me again the InDesigner, but then if I move over to the Properties tab, I can see the events like on activate and on before save state. But this is for what it's showing here is the ADX SP Ribbon tab 1, and what I want is the actual ribbon itself. Now I can do a couple things. I can click inside this Properties drop down and move to the ribbon, which that'll do it. But also too, if I click back here and then click back within the design surface, I also get the SP ribbon and I can get to my events. In this case, what we want to do is create an event in the JavaScript events for the onInitialize event. So I will double click and that will stub out my event. And what we'll do is write a little bit of code. We're going to start with an if statement. If is postback. I'm going to create an object just to call it result. And we want result to be the value of this class using the get postback result function. And we'll take the result. We're going to make sure that it's not null or that it's not an empty string. If that's the case, and we have a real string value in the result object, we're going to display a result or display a message box. All right, let's save everything and move back to the designer. I'm going to go ahead and open up my Solution Explorer and my Properties windows. And we are now ready to debug this project. And all I need to do is I can go from the debug window and choose Start Debugging. And what's going to happen when I do this is Visual Studio will deploy and activate this Ribbon Designer feature onto my local SharePoint solution, the one that I specified in my Ribbon Designer demo properties in the site URL. So before I do that, why don't I go, I'm going to set a couple of breakpoints just so you can see the code kick off during runtime. And then now let's go ahead and do debug, start debugging. And we see down at the bottom that the build has started. And we can watch the output. And we see the status of what goes on in terms of Visual Studio deploying the solution and activating it, etc. Once deployed and activated, Internet Explorer opens up for us at the site collection we specified in the project. And in this case, since I set the task list as the type to use for the Ribbon Designer, or as the type that will cause the Ribbon Designer to display, I need to go ahead and move over to the tasks list that I have for this site. And here we'll see I have one little list. I'm going to move back there. I have this list with one item in it, and we see here the My Custom Ribbon is indeed displaying. And now let's move back here, and it's triggered the SP Ribbon onInitialize event, which in this case it's not going to do anything. I'll just go ahead and say continue. And now I'll click My Custom Ribbon, and we'll see our button here, or my button, in the My Custom group, and it's just saying click me. It's just inviting me. So I'm going to go ahead and click it. And if you look down at the bottom, you see something's going on here. And there we are. We have the onAction event triggered, and I'm just going to click. I'm going to step through this. There we go. We have eResult set to Hello World. And then next, now the SP Ribbon onInitialize event handler triggers again. In this case, it's going to take the result and will display it for us. right here in Hello World. So let's go back, and just so we don't have to watch it through code, we can watch it as the user would see it, and I'll say click me and Hello World. So there we go. Let me close this, and let's head back to our design time environment inside of Visual Studio. Well, let's talk about deployment now. What we're going to do is we're going to take the WSP file created. It's going to be in the debug folder, so I'll just go ahead and head over there. I'm going to right click on the ribbon feature here and open folder in Windows Explorer, and I will navigate to the bin directory under debug, and here we have the Ribbon Designer demo WSP file. And for the more astute of you who are watching, you'll see that I actually misspelled designer. I know how to do it, but apparently I fat fingered it. We're going to move on anyways, but what I need to do is open up the SharePoint 2010 management shell, and I'll do that from the start menu. Go to the Microsoft SharePoint 2010 products and open SharePoint 2010 management shell. And here what I need to do to deploy the solution is to say stsadm-o add solution. And the next is the file name. I need to be sure and enclose this within quotes, and I'm going to go to the folder where my WSP file resides, and I will take that path and copy it, and I'll move back to the shell, the management shell, and when I right click, that path is going to paste in there. I don't have to do any additional command, but I need to go ahead and add my misspelled solution name, which is ribbon DSGINER demo.WSP, and I'll click the enter key, and the admin utility completed successfully, which means this solution has now been deployed to my farm. And now that it's deployed to the farm, I need to do two more things to have my solution available inside of my site collection. The first is to open up Central Admin and activate the solution. And the second is to go to the site collection and activate it as a feature. So let's do that now. Let's do the first bit, which is to open up SharePoint 2010 Central Admin. I have it saved just as a quick link here on my start menu, but I also could go down to Program Files and SharePoint 2010 Products and SharePoint 2010 Central Admin. Once in Central Admin, I need to move to the System Settings section. Then we need to go to Manage Farm Solutions. And here we see the Ribbon Designer demo file, and we see that status is not deployed, and it's not deployed to anything. So I will click on it, and then we will say Deploy Solution. And here I have the option, well, one, I deploy when. I want to do it now. And also deploy to, I could choose all content web applications, or I could choose any of the web applications and just do one of them. But I'll just go ahead and say, let's do all. I'll say OK. And now it's deploying. And if we move back now to my site, and I'll go to Site Actions, Site Settings, and I'll navigate down or scroll down to the Site Collection Administration section where I want to go to the Site Collection features and click that. And within here we see all the different features that are available, and we want to scroll down alphabetical order to the Ribbon Designer demo and activate it. And we'll just scroll down again to make sure that it is indeed active, and it is. And we'll now go back to the site, to the site's home. And we'll move back over to the tasks list, and we'll see that, yep, here we have my custom ribbon. It's displaying as we'd expect, and if I click on the Click Me button, it's going to work just as we have programmed it to do with the Hello World. And there you have it. That's the end-to-end demo of the Ribbon Designer. I hope you can see how quickly it is and how easy it is to build custom SharePoint ribbons and then deploy them to SharePoint. And as you can see too, there's not a lot different. If you have experience working with SharePoint and building SharePoint features, this tool works within that framework, but simplifies the process and allows you to focus more on your business rules and the code required to implement them. I encourage you to download the demo today and find out for yourself just how powerful this tool is.